Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today during our webinar. My name is Migdalia Gomez. I'm the AVP of Community Engagement at the Harvard University Employees Credit Union. And today we'll spend a little bit under an hour. Maybe we'll hit that whole hour, but I think it may be a little bit under an hour, talking about money, protecting ourselves from scams and frauds. I don't know about you, but if you maybe have experienced some potential threats or have heard of someone close to you unfortunately being scammed or being exposed to some fraud. So we'll get into a lot of those different topics. Just want to let you all know we are on a Zoom webinar, meaning that you are welcome to eat your lunch. If you have crunchy potato chips, no worry, we won't hear you. If you're working from home and there's a pup or baby in the background and they become vocal, that's okay. We will not hear it. However, we do want to make sure that you have an opportunity to submit questions to us today. We have disabled the chat. It's a little bit harder for me to keep track of the chat and the Q&A, but we are going to use the Q&A. So if you do have any questions, please use the Q&A, and that's how I will see them. You can submit questions anonymously, or if you want to, you can submit them with your information. Note that if you do submit with your name, I may just dismiss the question after I answer them so that not everyone sees your question. So I will always try to protect your information as much as possible. To make sure that you know how to use the questions, let me know, where are you joining us from today? Are you joining from home? Where's home? Are you joining from a hospital? Which hospital? So using the Q&A, please let me know where you're joining us from. This will serve a couple of functions. One, it'll let me know that you can hear me. It also will help me know that you can submit questions. So I will wait a couple of seconds until some of you submit where are you joining us from, just so that I know that I have the go ahead to get started. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. I see a lot of folks joining from home. I see someone is in Wayland, someone at BWH, someone from Raleigh, someone from Sutton. Thank you, BWH. Wonderful. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. As I said, I'm Migdalia at the Harvard University Employees Credit Union, but today's presentation is in collaboration with our partners over at the Employee Assistance Program. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa, who will tell you about many of the great resources that they have. And then I'll jump back on and we'll get into protecting your money from scams and fraud.
Thank you, Migdalia, and welcome everybody. And I was telling Migdalia earlier that I got a fake PayPal account during the pandemic. Somebody ran one up for $17,000 and I was getting all these notices from different collection agencies. So I think it's such a timely topic and very valuable. And EAP is happy to be a co-sponsor with Harvard Credit Union on it. Thanks. And I'll just tell you quickly about us. Many of you already know about the Employee Assistance Program. We cover all the entities across Mass General Brigham. And we like to say no problem is too big or too small, because sometimes employees will apologize. Oh, I know it's not a life or death matter. It's not an emergency. You can call us about any work or life stressor. I like to share the example. I had somebody who had just moved here. Oh, thanks, Migdalia. Someone had just moved here from another part of the country, needed help finding a dog park for their dog. So really, it does not have to be an emergency. And that's a snapshot of the kinds of issues that we see. And financial is number one, overwhelmingly number one. While our employees during the pandemic had their jobs, maybe they lost a second job, or maybe a household member lost a job. So we have a lot of people coming to us with financial issues. So we're very happy to have this topic today. And we do see people about job stress, of course, and then anxiety and depression is number two. And we can help people find a therapist or a program if needed on the insurance with availability. That's the big one. No more stigma about seeking out mental health support. Everybody and their brother is seeking out counseling, and we'll look long and hard to help you find someone. So I'm not going to take too long, but check out our website. You're getting a lot of information today. So if you don't remember too much about us, we're eap.partners.org, the old Partners platform. Or feel free to call to book an individual appointment. And I hope you enjoy this webinar. It's such a great topic, and I'll turn it over to Migdalia.
Thank you, Lisa, and thank you again, everyone, for joining. I am going to turn my video off. We have a couple of slides that I'm going to zoom in on, so it'll be a little bit easier. It might give you a little bit more space, but I will be here as you'll hear my voice, but just know that is why I turned the video off, just to get to some of these examples. So a little bit more about us at the credit union. Lisa mentioned that we're the Harvard University Employees Credit Union, but what exactly does that mean? Well, it means that we are the same as a bank in the sense that we have the same products. We have checking accounts, credit cards, savings accounts, CDs, mortgages, car loans, student loans, you name it. We also have RV loans. But with that, the biggest difference is that as a not-for-profit financial institution, we're able to offer lower rates on loan products, higher rates on savings, and we're also able to help and by giving back to our community much in many different ways, including presentations such as these. And you do not need to be a member of the credit union. We would love for you to join. Anyone that is associated with MGB is eligible, but regardless, you don't have to be a member to enjoy any of these resources that we have. And we do have different locations. We actually just opened this past Wednesday. We just opened a new branch on Brookline Ave, 435 Brookline Ave, on the corner of Jocelyn's Place. So we're right where the Jocelyn building is. If you know where Sweet Greens is, we are on the other corner. So right on Brookline Ave, on that corner branch. And we invite you to stop by and visit us. We have a lot of fun, different things going on in the branch. And we actually have a couple special promotions, promo rates on CDs and other accounts for those that are able to go into the branch. As I said earlier, one of the things that is really the benefit of us being a not-for-profit is that we are focused on doing what is best for our members. Like, that is our goal. And with that, we take a lot of the profits that we make and we reinvest it in personal finance education for the entire community. And you all have access to this information. I'm going to put it in the chat. And I will say, as I'm speaking today, I'm also going to be typing. So if I ever have type something in incorrectly and it's not working for you, just let me know and I will put that back in there, that link. But I just put a link in for Thrive. This is our free personal finance program. It's education in a variety of different ways. We have workshops that you can watch. You can sign up, such as these. We have a YouTube channel. We have online learning program. So if you wanted to take a 10, 20-minute course on a variety of different personal finance topic, you all have access to that. We also have access to free financial counselors. So this is definitely to supplement the information, the counseling that you have through EAP. But if you wanted to speak to someone specifically about credit or debt repayment, a little bit about federal student loans, you are welcome to contact our partners at Green Path Financial Wellness, and you can access all of this through our Thrive website, which I just put on the link. And as I said, this is available to everyone in our community. We pay for it so that it's free for you. And you do not have to be a member to partake in to these services. Just by attending these presentations, now you have access, because we believe strongly that if no one should ever be financially stressed. There's so many resources out there and we are here to help. So now that we talked a little bit about the resources that we offer, I want to get into really what we're going to be talking about today, which are frauds and scams. Now, I don't know about you, but a lot of folks sometimes use these interchangeably. I know that I do, and I apologize in advance because I may do that today during our presentation. But I did want to start off acknowledging that they are technically different. So fraud and scams are different. I like to think of it sort of the way that it helps me, that I understand it a little bit better, is that scams always are going to involve losing money. So if I lost money, if someone sent me funds and then I sent them money back and I don't get my money back, that's a scam. Fraud is much more on sort of the deception. So it's still lying. I'm not saying they're both bad, but with fraud, it doesn't always involve losing money. So for example, somewhat timely here with us all having voted recently, you have voter fraud. Voter fraud is not the same. There's no money that's being lost, so it's not a scam. Typically, frauds also are targeting larger systems. That you could have a fraud that causes you to lose money, but typically scams are more individually targeted, and that's usually the ones that most of us experience tend to be scams. But regardless, neither one of these is good. We're going to get into all of these, but just wanted to say that there is technically a little difference between the two of them, but most of us do use the terms interchangeably. So we're going to talk a little bit about the different types of examples. I know that this is a webinar. You can't see me. I did turn the camera off, but I want this to still be engaging. So I'm going to ask a couple of questions throughout, or maybe if I mention something and you have an example, please put it in the Q&A. This is going to help us because we can all learn from each other. And especially when it comes to scams and fraud, getting the word out there is one of the biggest ways that we can protect ourselves, because many times if you experience something, or if you're not quite sure and you don't tell someone, the next person won't tell, and the next person, sort of that scam bystander effect. And at that point, the scamsters and fraudsters could have done away with a lot of money. So we definitely want to continually share. So if any of these are things that you have experienced, heard of, put it in the Q&A. I will always take time and share your experiences so that we could all learn and be better protected. Okay, so these are some of the different types of scams that are very common. The first one is a deposit check. So for deposit checks, what this is when an individual receives, and I'll use myself, let's say that I receive a check for $5,000. It could be any amount. But if I receive a check for $5,000 under any sort of circumstances, sometimes for some individuals, they receive the check because they signed up online for an employment opportunity. And it's like, oh, we'll send you the money first. Or sometimes it's like, oh, you won this money. Excuse me. It could be sometimes, oh, here's a check that you received in the mail. And people look at it, they're like, oh, check seems legit. You deposit it in the account. And then the scammers contact you and say, oh, actually, I sent you too much money. Can you, send me back 3,000, or can you send me back 2,000? At that point, what happens is that check that they sent you does not clear, but they get you to send the money before you know that check has not cleared, meaning that I am now out of whatever money I sent to them. One of the best things that you can do to protect yourself from these is not depositing checks that you aren't expecting. So if you do receive a check in the mail, question that. When you do contact or to try to verify who sent that check, many times we may be inclined to look at the check, and if it says, Bank of America, and it has a address or a number on that check, you may be inclined to call or contact the information that's on that check. One of the things that you can do is actually go on to the financial institution's website, or if they have a local branch, and go there directly or call them directly, and not utilize any of the phone numbers or any of the addresses that were sent with the check. Because very often what will happen is that check will have a phone number to the scammers that is not actually the financial institution. So you think you're calling Bank of America, but in fact, you're calling the scammers on a different line. And someone put in the chat that they had an example of asking someone, being asked to deposit a check and then sending the money via Western Union money transfer. Thank you. Yes, that's another good example. Thank you for sharing that one. For deposit checks, and this is a little bit about check fraud, but it's a little different than the deposit check. But something that we have seen, unfortunately, a rise of are people that are mailing checks. So let's say I put a check in the mail today, and that check gets intercepted, stolen really, by someone else. And then they wash out the ink on the check where I put to who the check was made for, the amount, or they may change it and make it payable to themselves at a different amount. So one of the things, especially during the holidays, I don't know about you, I know a lot of my friends, my family is mostly out of the country, so I never experienced this, but I know I have a lot of friends that say that they get, oh yeah, my grandmother sent me a check in the mail, or my aunt sent me a check in the mail for the holidays. One of the things that you could do to be safer is actually not send checks in the mail as much as possible. Try to avoid that. There are many different ways that you can transfer money through your financial institution that's a bit more secure, just to make it so that it's less likely that that check could potentially be stolen. Or another piece, if you are going to, if you do still choose to send a check in the mail, make sure that you are letting the individual know, oh, you may be getting something in the mail. Let me know if you don't get it in the next couple of days. That way you have a little bit of a window, and then you can check your online account to see that that check cleared. That way you can hopefully catch it if it were to be stolen. So that's one piece with checks. Money transfer. So this one, thank you for the person that put in the chat a little bit about the Western Union example. Yeah, that's another example of a scam. And these are very, very popular. Please let me know in the Q&A if you've ever received any emails about, a prince in a different country needing money, or any of these potential money transfer scams. I know these are very popular. I know I've had individuals, unfortunately, that we've heard through the credit union. We've had members at the credit union, unfortunately, that have fallen victim to online romance scams. And I know at first thought, a lot of people will say, oh, how didn't you know? Or, and I want us to be kind to each other. I don't think, no one intentionally falls victim to these scams. Unfortunately, scamsters are very good at identifying people's weaknesses and unfortunately taking advantage of those. And many times, there's a popular show on MTV, catfishing, or for those of you that maybe haven't seen the show, know of the term. Many times people, go online, you think you're meeting someone and you establish a relationship, whether it's a, friendship, romantic, whatever it may be. And people aren't necessarily who you think they are on the other side. And they may, after you've established a trust in them, if you will, after maybe months or weeks, they may ask for $200. So you might say, oh, of course. Yeah, let me send the $200. I don't want my friend to be in danger, or the person that I care for. And we've seen many people that have fallen victim to this. Typically what the way that these scams work is that they build a relationship with the individual, and then they all of a sudden are in need. The individual then sends them money, and then they never get those funds back. And it depends. We've seen some that people that have lost thousands of dollars. We've seen people that have lost hundreds. So it happens. Someone here in the chat just said, yep, I was a victim. Found out I was receiving emails from various different emails pretending to be the same person. I am so sorry that you experienced that. And thank you for sharing, because I think it helps people to realize, this can happen to all of us. It's very, very common. For grandparent scams, I had one of my former colleagues. She had a scammer contact her grandparents via phone and ask her grandparents to go purchase gift cards and mail them. I forget where it was, to mail them somewhere, because her grandson was in jail and they needed bond money. The grandparents were, quick to realize this doesn't seem right. Partly because they knew the grandson and they're like, that kid's not in jail, but also because the gift card piece. Anytime that someone is asking you to send money or purchase gift cards, that can be a big red flag. Right now, with the holidays approaching, there are many organizations that may ask for gift cards. A lot of times though, they're larger organizations, and you can go onto the website, you can verify that that's why they're asking. They're usually asking for gift cards to donate them. And that's a very different piece than asking for gift cards to pay for a service or to pay for something that typically is some sort of emergency. So for example, with the grandparent of my colleagues, they knew, why would I need to pay bond with the gift card? Why would I need to pay for medical service with the gift card? Why would I need to pay for anything via gift card? So anytime you get a request for gift card, that's in itself could be a little bit of a flag. Also nowadays with gift cards, especially if you're purchasing a gift card, I know for CVS, we sometimes purchase gift cards to donate at the credit union. And I usually go to CVS. There's one in Harvard Square. And there's a question that pops up usually if is anyone asking you for this gift card in form of payment? So businesses have added additional layers. And I know it may seem annoying, like, oh, why do I have to answer all these questions? I just want the gift cards. But just keep in mind that businesses are trying to protect us, even though, yes, it adds an additional step. Now, phishing and smishing, these are very common. I have an example coming up, but basically these are when you're getting emails or texts. I know Lisa mentioned that she's getting a lot of different texts. I say myself, I'm always getting different texts, basically impersonating a business, whether it's a text, that's the smishing. A phishing is when it's an email, but it's a communication that is impersonating a business that you may or may not have a relationship with. I have a couple of examples coming up, so I'm going to skip over it right now on some things to look into, or be aware of when it comes to emails. For the text messages, my biggest tip: delete it. If you think it's fake, delete it. If I'll use myself an example. A couple of weeks ago, my mom is an authorized user on one of my accounts, and I received a text message that the credit card was used in New York. And I know my mom is not in New York right now, so I knew something was up, and it was a text message from Capital One, but it seemed suspicious. So what I did was I deleted that text message. I went into my Capital One account. I opened that account. I contacted them through the Capital One website, through the app. And yes, it was fraud. Someone did utilize my mom's card, but I didn't click on the link because I wasn't sure. I was still followed up. I still wanted to make sure that I wanted to look into it. So when I say delete, I don't mean just delete and stop. If you think if it's an account that you have a relationship with, go directly to the source, go to their website, call them directly, and then see if it's a legitimate concern. Sometimes, like I get text messages, and please, let me know in the chat if you're getting any text messages or emails. That way we can all, again, learn from each other. But I get a lot of text messages about a DCU account. I don't have a DCU account, so I know that's fake, and I just delete those right away. Depending on your phone company, you may be able to block or report. So when you delete the text message, sometimes you're able to now block or report the text messages. Lottery or sweepstakes, these are very similar to the deposit the check and saying that you've won, you're a winner. And then they get you to click a link. And many times we're like, well, what's the problem of clicking a link? The problem with clicking the link is that it's not a link that's just going to, you're not clicking a link. Sometimes you are, but mostly you're not clicking a link to then complete a form and give them your information. Sometimes these links can essentially put malware on your system. So by clicking on that link, you're exposing your computer so that they have access to what's on your computer. So if you have any personal information, which most of us do, could be your email, they then can essentially take control of your computer. So that's why clicking those links, whether it's on your phone or in an email, that's why we want to avoid doing that. Government impersonators, oh my goodness, these are one of the most popular ones. I don't know. I'm pretty sure, put it in the chat if you've ever received the IRS call or you owe the IRS money. And those, again, companies have gotten much better. And that is because people are reporting these. So when we report, it means that they have more information, they can better identify. So they can usually say, I know my phone says potential scam or scam likely. I think it's scam likely that the caller ID now says. But basically what these are, someone is on the other line pretending to be in the government. Usually it's IRS. I've heard of people being with ICE. That was most recently, I heard a scam along those lines. And they are trying to get you to provide information. One of my close friends recently was telling me that they received a call, and they are, I won't get into too much detail of what they do for work, but they're in a very high level position. They used to work in finance. Like they thought they were doing everything correct, but they ended up being on the phone call for about 5-10 minutes. And then they felt at the beginning, they're like, oh, this sounds legitimate. This sounds like it's correct. But essentially what happened was someone was telling them that there was a cargo shipment that came in with drugs, and that they had their information so that the government froze their assets. And they were asking her, hey, what accounts do you have? I see that you have this bank account. Are we missing any others? I need to know how much money you have in all of these. And those questions started to get her to be like, this doesn't sound right. And what I found really scary, truthfully, about this particular scammer was that they said, why don't you Google me? Google the department that I work in, Google, and that, she did Google and they didn't come up, which I thought was really silly that they would say that. But the point though being is that just because you're on the phone and someone may say, oh, Google me, I'm legitimate, I'm this is a true company, that does not necessarily mean that it's a sign that they are saying what the truth. What my friend did to get out of it, and when she tried getting out of the call, this is sort of those red alerts, if you will, that popped up, was that she did say, she's like, well, let me call back. I don't, and they were kept asking her more information, like they kept sort of pushing. And the more that they push, that's usually a sign. That is usually a sign. And that having that sign of someone pushing you, that's a big no way. If you're trying to help me, why are you pushing me for more information? So I know a couple of things, people submitted some of their scams. So someone said, I received an occasional text message, suspicious activity on your Amazon account. I have $0 balance available and no active credit card info there. So just delete the message. Thank you. I think Lisa had mentioned that she gets a couple of those Amazon ones. Someone says, yes, I have gotten email messages, but I tend to delete them. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. Okay. So I know we're talking about frauds and scams, but why do we care? Oh, thank you. Someone said, always look at the domain of the email. Thank you. I actually have an example of that, so I appreciate you mentioning that. But why do we care if our information is compromised? Well, we care because if our information is compromised, they're most likely going to open accounts and take on debt and not pay it back. It was very different if people were just, oh, yeah, I'm just going to open an account and I'm going to pay it off every month. And, still not ideal. You don't want anyone doing that to your account, but it's a very different story if they were like, being polite fraudsters and scammers and just, oh yeah, I just needed an account and I'm paying it off in full. Okay. No, that's not what they're doing. They're opening accounts, they're charging credit cards, and they're not paying it back. So then it goes on to our credit report, negatively impacts us, prevents us from possibly opening other lines of credit when we do need it. And additionally, it makes it so that when we do find that these accounts are open, it makes it harder for us to close them. And it's not impossible, but it creates more work. And then really it prevents us from possibly or delays us from reaching financial goals. So what I mean by this, let's say that I'm trying to buy a house, and we see this unfortunately more often than we'd like. And we definitely help our members through this, but we see members that are applying for a mortgage, and in the process they find out, oh, there's somebody that opened an account that was not them. It's delinquent on their credit report. So now that member has to resolve that. And again, we work with them, but the member has to resolve that before their mortgage can clear. So in that situation, there are people that could potentially lose out on a house or a car or, educational loans, any product, because they're trying to resolve those issues. Now, there are many different things that you can do to protect yourself. A couple of the things that you can do is that sense of urgency. And this is not just for scams and fraud. This also just is in general with anyone that is urging you to do something right away. That's usually a sign that something's not right, especially when it comes to your finances. So many times fraudsters are successful because they are, as humans, it's that flight or the sense of flight. When we are in danger, we want a response. We want to make sure, we want to get out of that situation. Something's bad. I need to run away. I need to be safe. I need to get this resolved. So what they're doing is they're saying, hey, if you don't do this now, it's going to get worse. Take a moment and say, you know what? I can't at the moment. I'm going to give you a call back. Take time, talk to someone. If there's a sense of urgency, go to your financial institution, go to EAP, contact a friend and just say, hey, I just got this. What do you think? Take that time and do not respond right away. Don't click, don't continue on with that conversation. Odd request. Now I said this one earlier, when they're requesting gift cards, that's usually a big alert. The other one though is personal information. And a lot of our personal information is very easy, unfortunately, to access. Most people that are on social media, like a lot of your information's out there, whether it's a birthday, folks have like their birthdays on LinkedIn, like personal information is out there. But when they start asking, questions that may be a potential password indicator or password hint. So, oh yeah, I had a lot of pets growing up. Did you have any pets growing up? Oh, well, yeah, the name of my first pet was Linda. What about yours? Oh, yours was okay. You never know. So you have to be careful with some of the tones. And it's a lot of times people will say, oh, if it's someone close to you, maybe, don't be as on alert. Unfortunately, and not all the time, but we've definitely seen with elder fraud and elder financial abuse, it's a lot of times the folks that are closest to the elder, the ones that are getting this information from the elder and using it wrongly, using it to take advantage of that elder's financial situation. Threats, if you're being threatened, and this is how, when I was just saying my example of my friend, she was being threatened like, oh, you have to do this or your accounts or your assets have been frozen. They'll be frozen for longer. They started threatening her. They weren't yelling, which I thought she said that was a really why she thought it was the actual government. She's like, well, they weren't yelling at me. They were being nice about it, but they were threatening. So if you are being threatened, that is another sign. And then for tone on the email, someone put in the chat, always look at the domain of the email. Thank you so much. That's such a good point. You want to make sure, just because they put the logo and made the words or the brand match what you're used to, that doesn't mean that it's a legitimate site. So I said this before, don't open unknown attachments, delete those. Look for the HTTPS when you're on a website, on a website. That makes it means that is more secure. Also be on the lookout, be a grammar police, if you will. If there's poor grammar or spelling, that's usually a sign that it's a email that's fraudulent. So here is an example, and this is actually an email that I had received. And, I will say I do have a Capital One account, but I noticed that something was up when I received this email. So couple of different things here. I'm going to leave this on the screen for a moment, and I'm going to ask you in the Q&A, what are some things that jump out as, something is wrong with this email? So as you do that, I'm going to take a quick water break, but let me know in the Q&A, what are some things that you see in this email that lead you to believe that this email may be fraudulent? Okay, awesome. I see someone that said expiring soon. Yep. So the sense of urgency. Yep, expiring soon. Yep, sense of urgency. Thank you. A couple of you found that. The email address does not look correct. Yes, 2 of you said the email address. Someone had mentioned that earlier. Look at the domain. Like, what is this? That's not Capital One. I don't know. That's a lot of, yep, who's it from? Thank you. Yep, a lot of good catches here. Someone said the logo. Yes, very good catch. So the logo, it's similar. That's not the actual logo, but a couple of things. So there's one that I don't think anyone has caught yet, or maybe hasn't put in the chat. The subject says, one, it says a forward, which I thought was weird. Well, no, sorry, that was because I forwarded. The $90 Capital One reward. But if you look down at the email, it says $50. And not, I'm part of the extended marketing team. We do unfortunately make mistakes sometimes. I'm not saying that those don't happen, but that somebody would have probably caught that. So on the top it said 90, at the bottom it said 50. Another thing, and you wouldn't know this, was that it said your latest activity qualifies you. I hadn't used that card recently, so I knew that there was no activity. So I knew that was a lie. And then also that sense of urgency, I think most of you caught that. So I did not click that link. I did take a screenshot though to use it. Here's another example of an email that I received. And this one here, a couple of things. This one's a little bit harder. Please put it in the Q&A if there are things that jump out at you, but this one's a little bit harder to catch. The hey there, I never get emails from Netflix, and when I do, that's too casual. So I thought the tone was off. Also, a couple of different things. Newest members. I'm one of the old school Netflix users, back when they used to send envelopes. I think I started my Netflix account when I was in college. So I was like, I am not new. I am one of your most original members, if you will. So I knew that that was something there. And then there were a lot of different links that I just thought was something's wrong here. Why are they telling me to set up? Like I knew that this was a scam, but it is it's hard to tell. Like if you didn't know, and this is where it's important to have conversations with family members as well. So there may be someone in your family, if you have a Netflix account or any account that have multiple users, they may receive an email one day and think, oh, I don't know, I got the email. I thought you did something to the account. So you just want to have conversations with folks, especially if you have younger children or elders in your household, letting them know, hey, I am the account owner here. If anything, it will come to me. Please be careful. Oh, perfect. Someone else caught finish signing up. Yep, that's true. You would finish before submitting. That's a very good catch. Thank you. Yeah. It's like, well, yeah, I wouldn't have my account wouldn't be set up if I hadn't finished it. Thank you. That's a really, really good one. So what are some things that we could do to protect ourselves? Well, we want to be stingy with our information, meaning just be mindful of what you're sharing. Always, if you are going to send anything that includes personal information, use secure email, use secure systems. Do not share information via text messages. A lot of times people are, sending sometimes driver license, passport pictures, don't use secure Wi-Fi connections. Do not do online banking out of, public, like at the airport, at a hotel. Even though you may sign on to a connection, that doesn't mean that it's secure. You really want to make sure you're doing secure transactions at home or just not on Wi-Fi. And if you're not sure, ask for help. That is okay. Like we're all here. I think the individuals that have shared their experiences and, no one, and I know it's hard if you to feel like, oh, I should know better. Like, no, it's not our fault. It is never our fault that if we become victim of a scam or a fraud, these fraudsters and scammers are getting better, unfortunately. So it's not your fault. Ask for help. We are here. One of the biggest pieces is also to report it. You can go to the ftc.gov/complaint website and submit any complaints. This is important because the more complaints that they receive, the better that they're getting at identifying these and really putting out alerts when scams and frauds are happening. So if you ever receive an alert, if you ever go onto a website or see something online or on the radio, like, oh yeah, this scam's going out there, this is because people are reporting it. So by reporting it, we're helping protect each other. And talking to your family, I said this earlier, but I just want to remind folks, elders and children especially are nowadays on social media a lot of different times, or they have email accounts. They may not know, they may not realize like, oh, don't click on every link, or hey, if somebody's asking you, especially children, they may not realize like somebody's asking them for their date of birth or social security number. You never know what they may be asking a child or an elder. And we always just want to educate them and let them know, do not share your personal information. If someone's promising you that you're winning a prize, check with me first. Let's talk about it. I'll help you get that prize if it's true, but just help educate them, because unfortunately people like to target the elders and children. So just a couple of different things. And thank you. I do see that additional questions are being submitted in the Q&A. Keep submitting them. I will take a moment shortly to answer them. But just want to tell you how we protect our members. But even though not all of you may be HUECU members, check with your financial institution. But we have a variety of different security measures in place. So when members call us, we will ask them for additional questions to verify their identity. One of the best things that we recommend for our members is to contact us via online banking. We have a messaging system within online banking that is very secure. We also would never ask as a financial institution, and not just financial institutions and not just us, this is across the board, We're not asking you for passwords. That is such a big red flag. If someone is asking you for a password, um, that is not the case. And also, if you're not quite sure, like let's say that you get a call and it's us saying, "Hey, we're calling you from HUECU," and you're not sure, just say, "Oh, I can't talk right now," or "I'm not sure, but I'll give you a call back." That is okay. Our teams are trained to be aware of this because we tell our members, if you're not sure it's us, hang up, give us a call directly. And when you do so, you can, I wouldn't call the number back on the caller ID. Just go onto our website, go onto our social media accounts, and then you can see our numbers there, our official numbers there. I do want to say, I know it's all over the news, so just be careful with Twitter right now. I wouldn't necessarily use Twitter to verify that someone is who they say they are, especially as we know that Twitter is undergoing major changes. Also, we do email our members if we think there may be suspicious activity on your account. But beyond that, if you aren't quite sure, or if something did happen, we do have supports in place. And some of the things that we do is if your information is compromised, we encourage our members and even everyone in our community, if your information is compromised, you can freeze your credit. So what does this mean? It means that you are preventing anyone that is not you from utilizing your credit report or your information to open a new line a credit card, a checking, a credit card, a loan, that you're preventing them. This does create more work for you because then if you do want to borrow a loan, you'd have to unfreeze your account, but it is worth it for peace of mind. I had my information unfortunately compromised a couple years ago. And by compromised, I mean, I was working with a lender and one of the lawyers sent my information, like my tax returns, personal information, like my name, all this information in an unsecure email. And the moment that happened, I replied back and I was so ridiculously upset, as you can imagine. But I froze my account. I was like, well, I don't know if this person's email is ever hacked or if my email's hacked. And, obviously I deleted it, but I don't know. It was compromised. So I froze my credit. It gives me peace of mind now knowing that no one can access my credit. Also, the other one is reviewing your credit reports. One of the things that you could do in monthly accounts is, if you haven't already, set up alerts on your credit card accounts. A lot of financial institutions, I know we do it at the credit union, we provide our members with their credit report every month. So you can take a quick look at it and look at that. See, are there any open accounts? The benefit of catching it earlier is that you can then go back to that financial institution and tell them that it wasn't you. The earlier you catch something, typically the less, the easier it is to clean up, if you will. Also, you could potentially sign up for credit monitoring if you think that is a need, but you could also increase the security on your accounts. If you don't have dual authentic verification set up on your accounts, that's something that you can do. And what that is, that's usually when you have to, I know we have it for a variety of different accounts, but basically I can't just sign into my account. I usually have to get a text message or a call with a different number. That may seem inconvenient, but the benefit there is, if somebody gets access to my email address and my password, they won't get the text message with the code, so they won't be able to move forward. So yes, it is more work on your end. Excuse me. It is more work on your end, but it does make it a little bit easier. It protects you significantly. So it is harder, a little bit of an additional step, but it's then becomes harder for someone to get access to your information. Also, close accounts. That's something that, depending on the situation, it may or may not make sense to close account. We work with our members. So if you ever are compromised, contact us. We'll let you know if it makes sense to close it or not. Someone submitted a question that I think may be relevant here. What is the best way to handle a credit card no longer used? Can I just cut up and discontinue using it, or better to formally close the account? Someone told me that if you close the account, it may negatively affect your credit score. What do I suggest? I suggest contacting Green Path financial counselors, the reason for that is they're accredited credit counselors. So they'll be able to actually look at your credit report and identify if closing that account will have a negative impact on your credit score or not. Typically, if you have a credit card and you have not used it within the last 6 months, that it has less of an impact on your credit score. So it may not negatively impact your credit score. However, there are sometimes, like if you only have that one credit card and you close it, that may impact your credit score. Personally, I have closed accounts on my credit cards and accounts, and I have a high credit score. It did not impact my credit file because I had other other things on my credit report. I know one of our former colleagues, he had a account that he wasn't utilizing. And because he wasn't utilizing it, it actually was compromised because fraudsters were able to use that card, and he wasn't checking the account statements. He wasn't using it because he's like, oh, I haven't used that account in years. But little did he know it was being used by someone that was pretending to be him and racking up all this debt. So just because you're not using it, it does not mean that somebody else couldn't have access to that account. Okay, someone put in the chat, this year I plan to give a paper shredder as a gift for Christmas to my family so they can actually shred papers that have sensitive information. Tearing papers with your hands won't tear obvious information most of the time. Thank you so much. Yes, this is such a great point. I think I've honestly had a shredder since I was like in my early 20s. Like I am a big fan. Like I can actually touch the shredder that I have in my where I'm standing now. It's pretty close to me. I'm a big fan of shredders. And you know, when you do get a shredder, make sure it's the right, look at the type. I've learned a lot about shredders over the year, but make sure it's the right type of cut. There are some shredders that just they don't do the crisscross cut, meaning that it just has thin, long pieces of paper. So technically you could tape the information, or sometimes depending on how you cut the paper, sometimes your name will just appear on the full roll. Like it just sort of depends how you place the paper. So I suggest looking a little bit deeper for anyone else that's interested in purchasing a shredder and seeing if you could get the crisscross cut that's more secure, the smaller size paper. And also when you do throw away anything that's shredded, don't just put it all in the same bag, put other things that are recycled in that same bag. So what I mean is when I empty my shredder, I don't just take all the shredded documents and put it in a paper bag and then put that to recycle. No, I put cans, I put other shredded items in there. We have single stream recycling where I live so that it's harder to get to the paper. Oh, and if you did pay a scammer, one of the things that you can do is contact the financial institution. So for us, for our members, we ask them to contact us because then we'll try to trace those funds. We'll try to figure out where those funds went. A couple of resources, identitytheft.gov. This is a great resource. You can learn more about identity theft prevention. Also, the biggest piece is always just being vigilant. I hate saying this because I don't want us to live our lives thinking that someone's out to get us. But unfortunately, there are people that just aren't the best and they are trying to get our information. So we just have to be protective and just make sure that we're always safeguarding our information. And you also, as I said earlier, all have access to Green Path Financial Wellness. You can contact them at huecu.org/greenpath. I do see some questions coming in. Please keep them coming in. I'll take a moment shortly to answer them. But Green Path does offer free credit counseling. And if you are a victim of identity theft, they can help you walk you through that as well. Our blog, we put about 3 articles a week, and a good amount of them are about scams. Someone put a question in the chat. I've heard TV, radio commercials, find lost money at findmassmoney.org. Is this real? It is. So we actually have an article on our blog. Unfortunately, because I'm sharing my screen, I cannot find it to put it in the chat, but we do have on our blog, I think if you find abandoned property, if you search for abandoned property in our blog, the article will come up, but there are actual websites that every financial institution, or anyone, even if it's not a financial institution, it could be medical as well. by state law, they have to, if they've tried, let me back up this. If you have an account with us, let's say at HUECU, and you have not used your account in, and I may get the exact dates wrong, but if you haven't used your account in 3 years and we've contacted you and you haven't responded to us to say to keep the account open, we have to report that to the state and we send those funds to the state. Other financial institutions also do the same. That as a result, there are accounts that people have that they didn't touch. They maybe forgot about it. There could be maybe if you received paper checks at an old employer and you didn't cash a check, that money is still yours. So what happens is employers, financial institutions have to report this to the state, and then the states do compile this on a website. Every state has a different website. I forget the full website where you can get all of them, but it is on our blog. And you can actually access funds that may be out there under your name. So I do encourage you, go to our blog, look for the abandoned property article so that you can get the full URL of the website, because I am blanking on it, because it's not just in Mass, it's across the country. I have had friends who have found paychecks that they were owed, but you usually do have to do some steps to verify that's you, but that is a legitimate site. Thank you for asking. I do have a quick survey that I will put in the chat if folks don't mind taking a moment to complete these. We go through these results and with EAP, and we identify what content you like, what content you don't like, and that helps us continue these presentations to know what would be helpful and what you would like to hear more or less about. So please, I ask you to take a quick moment to think 3 or 4 questions, very short, and just let us know, what could I have done better? What content would you like EAP to provide in the future? And we'll work with them. Someone asked a question, back to credit cards not being used for over 6 months, would it close automatically? Should we ask the number on the back of should we call the number at the back of the card? Should we close cards that we do not use? Does it impact credit score if my credit score is high? So to answer the first part of the question, some credit card companies may close your account automatically if you don't use it. Some may not. It really depends. Each company does things a little bit differently, but there are some credit card companies that will sometimes decrease your limit, or they may just close your account if you're not using it. I would just contact if you do want to go ahead and close the accounts that you're not using, I would contact the credit card company directly. Also, when you close the account, you can ask them to put on your credit report, account closed by user. And essentially what this means is that when it shows up on your credit report as closed, a lender knows that you told them to close the account, that you made that choice, versus that it was closed per the credit card company. The other question, does it impact my credit score if my credit score is high? It most likely may not, but I cannot 100% say that. As you see here, perfect timing, I have a disclaimer. We provide this information to be general and educational in nature. I do recommend contacting counselors such as Green Path Financial Advisors. They are accredited credit counselors. They can pull up your credit report. It does not impact your credit score, and they can give you much more information on your specific situation. So I would give Green Path a call for that piece of it to see whether or not it would impact your credit score. I thank everyone for joining us today. Such great questions, such great examples. It helps to learn from each other, and I hope this was helpful. If there's anything else that we can do for you, we are at My HUECU on all social media channels. And we also are available in person. We have a branch in Harvard Square, one in Mass General Hospital. We also have one in the the Assembly Row MGB building. And now we're over at 435 Longwood Ave. And yeah, I think that's 435 Brookline Ave in the Longwood Medical area. But that is all that I have. I will stay on for a little bit longer to see if there are any questions. If I don't see any questions, or if you don't have any other questions, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your afternoon and happy early Thanksgiving.